So guys, the MiG-25 actually had multiple changes to it. I did briefly mention on the dev update video, right, that they changed the max speed and everything, but I really wanted to take a look into all the major changes that they did because it's plenty. And the aircraft, it's very different than what it was, okay? So we're gonna check it out showing the game, StatShark, and then showing the game. So how I'm gonna do that is basically I'm gonna talk a little bit about the changes on the aircraft itself here. Then we go to StatShark, we talk a little bit about there compared to yesterday's model, and then we're going to test it out on the actual game, okay? So, MiG-25 first change is this. As you can see, a very large fuel tank. So, they actually added an external fuel tank to the aircraft, which is pretty okay, actually. It really is pretty interesting because it actually helps the aircraft to have kind of a flexibility. This thing actually carries an enormous amount of fuel, of 45 minutes, which gives you, I calculated before, but the fuel consumption did go down, so I needed to calculate this again, but it was around 12 minutes of full afterburner, and in the higher altitudes, right? So it means that it might be even more than that, like 15, 16 minutes now, which is insane. It really is an enormous amount of fuel, and you will probably never need to carry this much fuel. I mean, I would probably carry a lot, on like 35 on the very least, or something like that, just because you will need time to climb and do the attacks, right? And overall, guys, this thing introduces 13 minutes of fuel, as you can see. And look at the size of the thing. It's kind of insane how internally you take, like, 45 minutes total, right? And then in this enormous fuel tank, you take only 13. So I don't know if it's ready, but look at the size of the thing. It's insane, man. It's the largest fuel tank I ever saw in the game. It really is. Like, it's insane. So, this is the first change that they did. Okay, guys? An external fuel tank is now present on, actually, the aircraft, right? And then we need to talk a little bit about the performance, guys. We had severe changes to the aircraft. One of them include a complete redesign of the thrust and consumption and everything on the engines, okay? So, you can see right here on the stat card, you can already see that it has a much lower power output than before. Before in the stat card it was 103 or something like that. Now it is 93 kilonewtons. And you can see in the stat card over here that you have two changes as well. An increase in indicated airspeed limit and an increase in the Mach number limit. Before it was around 1200 and Mach number was around 3.0. So these, you can already see that there are some changes over here. The aircraft is faster, but with lower thrust. So let's go to StatShark to actually show the difference on graphs, right? So yeah. So here we have it in StatShark, okay? StatShark shows basically all the things that I want to show to you guys in the numbers. So first of all, let's show the actual thrust. So the thrust got decreased, as you see in the lower altitudes over here. We are testing at 0 kilometers per hour. I'm gonna put a higher speed over here because 0, it's just, it doesn't matter. But you will see some pretty interesting changes over here. So let me just take these down because we're going to check it out later. As you can see, guys, in the lower airspeeds, we have two major changes over here. First of all, look at the VNE, the maximum amount of speed that you could do without breaking your wings. Before it was, you can see right there, 1500, right? So you have 1,215 kilometers per hour to go to, and then the wings would break. This is the older one. The newer one, you have 1326, so 1,326 kilometers per hour where you can go. So this is a severe increase, or a very big increase in the maximum speed that you can do in the lower altitudes, right? You can see that in initial phases of the acceleration between 600 and 1,000, you don't see too much difference on the graph over here, but closer to 1,200 kilometers per hour, you already see a pretty big difference. So yesterday, it would produce in its VNE 307 kilonewtons total thrust, and now it's 286. This is a total of 20 kilonewtons less. So exactly what the stat card kind of is showing, around 10 kilonewtons less each engine that you are producing. And of course, remember that the aircraft can go faster now. So yeah, it is, producing less thrust, the same amount, 20 kilonewtons less, but it can go faster, which is pretty great. If we actually go to like let's say 17,000 meters over here, which is a pretty standard altitude for this thing, and go to the maximum amount of speed over here that we have. Let's put like 3,500 kilometers per hour just to have a little bit of a margin there. You will see something pretty interesting happening as well on the thrust, okay? So you will see that throughout its flight path, and let me actually increase the minimum speed over here, 2,000 kilometers per hour, because of course these aircraft will stall it out sometimes in these higher speeds if it doesn't have too much energy, right? So you can see something very interesting here. The thrust is remaining with that. So at 2,400 kilometers per hour, for example, the newer one produces 185 kilonewtons, the older one 192. So the difference is less prominent here. You will see like 7 kilonewtons of difference. And even in the very high speeds over here, where, notice this, it produces the most amount of thrust. So that's why I always say the MiG-25 is supposed to be flying very fast and very high, because it produces the most amount of thrust in the 3,000. If you bring a normal aircraft over here, guys, and you actually see, I mean, Russians like to, like, don't have a cap. The higher you go, the more thrust it will produce, while Americans will try to have a specific place where they want to have that specific power, right? Power, like max power output, so they change. It's a choice, right? But the Russians, even with that kind of doctrine, you can see that the aircraft is made to fly at these speeds, because where it produces the most amount of power is at 3,000 kilometers per hour, see? And you can see the difference here, that it is a lot less than before, so around 8 kilonewtons. So you see that in the lower speeds, you will suffer more for acceleration, and in the higher speeds, you will suffer less, okay? So it is producing less thrust, but it is there. And you can see the increase on VNE as well, the older one, 3,000, I mean, it's even hard to actually say these words. 3,142 kilometers per hour on the older model to 3,186. So it's a little bit faster, like 40 kilometers per hour faster than before, okay? So this is going to be the maximum thrust that you can produce. What about drag? Did they change the drag? Maybe they changed the drag. Well, they did, guys. They did increase the drag. So not only you are losing thrust, you are gaining drag, okay? Which makes sense. I didn't say, guys, because I didn't properly know. But I had a feeling that it was overperforming the MiG-25 a little bit, because I managed in the first try to just fly up to 39,000 meters, which is insane, right? So as you can see over here, in the amount of speed that you can take over here, you will see that you have an increase in drag, right? Also, if we go to a lower speed, you will see something similar as well. But yeah, so increasing drag, lower thrust. If you see acceleration, obviously, because of those two things, you will see a lower acceleration. Is it big? No, but it is substantial. It's like around 20% more or less, right? So it's, I don't know, like 10%, a little bit more than 10%. No, like, yeah, 12, 15% more. So less acceleration, right? So it's accelerating less in the higher altitudes as well. If you look at the thrust to weight, the thrust weight will be different as well, because obviously I don't think the weight changed, but the actual power output got, changed. One thing that it's a buff that he received. Oh, look at this. Is it so? Oh no, sorry, that was weird. One thing that got changed is the fuel consumption. So now it is consuming less fuel. Of course, it is producing less thrust, right? So at least now you will have more time with less fuel, which is great, because then, think about it, you can take less fuel, which means less weight. So evens out at the end of the day. Not really, but it helps a little bit to close this gap of thrust weight, right? So very interesting, right? If we go to the lower speeds, lower altitude, sorry, over here, you will see something very similar happening. So let's go to the lower altitudes again over here, and you will see that we can have pretty much basically change that is around the same. So thrust, as you can see, let me just do each one like I showed before. Thrust, of course, you had that difference. The drag, let's see the drag. Again, you have the same amount of change, okay? So basically, the new MiG-25 produces more drag, okay? In the acceleration, of course, you will have the same problem. So less acceleration, especially in the higher speeds over here. Is it big, the change? Well, guys, to be honest, it is, but it's not that big. Like here, it's a substantial amount. Like it's around 30%, right? But it is still not the worst thing ever, right? Thrust to weight, of course, it will have the same change. And the fuel consumption as well got the same change. So the new one drinks less fuel, but it produces less thrust and it has more drag, meaning, so, lower performance, right? So in the terms of performance itself, let's take a look on time to speed over here. You will see obviously that the new one will have more time to take on those speeds. So for example, to reach the 1,200 km/h mark, it takes around 3 seconds more. So it's not like a small change. It's like around 10% less performance, right? But it's not a big change as well. It won't make the aircraft way worse. And remember, guys, this is a more realistic flight model. I gotta say, this is more akin to what the MiG-25 should be. And at the same time, of course, they increase it realistically as well, the maximum VNE. It should be higher than 1,300. It should be more like 1,400, but still, it is great that they are, fixing the vehicle. So time to speed, again, and in the high speeds, high altitudes as well. But let's take a look on performance, because on turn performance. Because turn performance, it doesn't matter too much on the initial turn, the amount of thrust you have. It matters on the regards of continuous turn, right? So let's take a look on that. But still, you can see the maximum amount of turn changing. So, like I said, guys, this matters only for the first turn, and you will see why in a bit. But the first thing, guys, look at this. It's the exact same turn on the new and the old. The blue is the old, right? The new flight models, right? So it basically turns the same up to these speeds. So up to 764 km/h. After that, it completely changes. So the maximum amount of turn was 25. It is right now 25.2 degrees, and before it was 26.7. So very, very small turns, changes like 7% in change over here. But overall, less Gs as well, as you can see, right? So before, it could actually get to the 10.87 Gs, and now it will get to about 9.57. So it is turning less as well, especially in the higher speeds. The aircraft up to 760 km/h will feel the same, but above that, it will turn less, pretty much, right? Especially because of the drag, because of everything with that, okay? And also, guys, one thing that you have to worry about here is that this is a very realistic turn for this aircraft in a safety limit environment, okay? 9.5 Gs maximum is more or less what was the maximum amount of Gs that they would normally do in these aircraft, okay? They would never go above that normally. They did go once to 11.5, so the aircraft can actually do more than this. And because, of course, it doesn't have any type of digital, flight computer system that will provide limits for the pilot. The aircraft will do whatever the pilot asks, right? Or try to, right? And that was the problem. They tried once to do the maximum amount of turn, and he reached an 11.5 G turn. So it would be even higher than this. But do you know what happened there? Well, the wings bended. So, yeah, they never did it again. And they settled a protocol of not being able to fly above certain Gs, okay? So in an overall sense, it means that it is not realistic, but it is at the same time because, it isn't what the 11.5 Gs that the aircraft could do, but in real life, they would never turn like this. Even in a combat scenario, they would try to not go to those scenarios because they would destroy the aircraft a bit, right? So, unfortunately, it's kind of realistic, but it is expected that it is kind of a bust. So, of course, it's not turning very well, okay? So, these are the changes on stat card. So, the MiG-25, guys, it got a more realistic flight model. Indeed, it does, right? Indeed, it got one. So, if you are a little bit sad about it, don't be, because this is more realistic. It will take a little bit more time to get to speeds. It was, so easy to get to 39. Yeah, guys, I did a video like that. 1,000 meters, guys. So it makes sense that we need less than that, okay? It was overperforming a bit. But of course, it was underperforming on the limits of the aircraft. These aircraft never broke its wings in the way that it works in War Thunder. And yeah, it's kind of a limit that they use in many aircraft that should not be breaking their wings and are. And it's just like a limit for people to have to not go over limits of real life. Each aircraft would have its own limits regarding specific problems that the aircraft would suffer. For example, the MiG-25 did never really suffer from wing rippage. The problem was bending of wings and overheating of parts, right? So what happened is if you turn too much, it would bend the wings. If you actually went too fast, it would actually bend the wings as well. And also, if you went too fast as well, it would overheat the fuselage. Some people call it, of course, the engine. Yes, it would overheat, but the main problem wasn't the overheating of the engine. The engine would take some punishment with overheating, and it would still work very well. The problem was overheating of fuel tanks, fuselage parts, and canopies. That was the main problem, that basically would create many other internal problems that the aircraft would not be able to recover from later, right? So it's not that the aircraft cannot go above Mach 3, for example, or even above 1,300 in low speeds. It's just that it would sustain some damage and not wing rippage, right? But Gaijin adds as wing rippage so that we can have a simple model so that people don't go over it, right? So as you can see, all the changes are here and it is pretty cool. As you can see, the aircraft is taking its time a little bit. You can feel that the aircraft is accelerating less than before. But as you can see, guys, you can go up to 1,300 in the low speeds. You can go to the Mach 3.04 or 0.5 even on the high altitudes. And you will see that it is not turning very well, right? It is a very sluggish aircraft now, which makes sense. It is an aircraft that it's not supposed to be turning, especially very fast. In the lower speeds over here, guys, you will see that the aircraft turns okay-ish, right? But even then, look at this. It's much worse than what it was before. It feels a lot more sluggish, and it feels a lot more realistic. If it is unfortunate or not, you tell me. My personal opinion, I think it's fine, as long as it is realistic. Okay, guys? So, yeah, heavy aircraft, now a little bit more realistic. So, this is it. These are all the changes that I could find. Of course, there is an honorable mention here that they actually added Search MTI for this radar. So it's something that, you know, it is a little bit better. I will check it out, the R40 missiles, if there is any change. If there are, I will be doing another video specifically to the R40 because this is already too long. But yeah. So I see you guys on the next one. Make sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment. Join the Discord down in the description. Make sure to be a Patreon or a member if you want to help the channel. And bye, guys. See ya.